Welcome to Steve's Eats, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to do a little bit of maintenance on your wood cutting board that'll make it last for years and years to come. So part of the reason I wanted to make this video is because wood cutting boards provide probably the nicest and most durable cutting experience that you can have for any of your kitchen cutlery. Reason being is the wood is a little bit forgiving as the knife goes over it. And compared to plastic or glass or some of the other cutting boards, wood really makes the best surface. The downside to wood is you really have to keep it clean because it's the most susceptible to food and bacteria particles sticking around. But aside from that, with a little bit of care and maintenance, it will really provide a nice cutting experience, and a big cutting board like this will last you for years and years to come. So how do we know when our wood cutting board is ready for maintenance? Well, wood naturally has a certain level of moisture content and it will dry out over time. And these wood cutting boards are joined together by several blocks of wood that are adhered together, and keeping it moist prevents those joints from separating and the wood cutting board essentially coming apart. So what we want to do is we want to keep the board hydrated, but we want to do that in a particular way, right? We can't just use water. It won't stick around long enough because nature's going to try and drive water out of the cutting board. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a little product known as food grade mineral oil. And food grade mineral oil, or in this case it's called cutting board oil, is the perfect product to apply to your cutting board. There's some other things that have some carnauba waxes and things like that, and those are okay. You just want to make sure that it is a food grade product that you're using. So what we're going to do is we're going to oil up the cutting board, we're going to let it rest, and I'm going to show you exactly how we do that. How do we know if our wood cutting board is ready for maintenance? Well, essentially what we can do is we can look at the board, and what we're looking for is we're looking for signs of drying out. The wood doesn't look as supple or as lush as it did when we first got it, and that's a pretty good indicator that you probably need to apply some oil to your board. So as you can see here, we've kind of got some of that going on, and not only on the top surface, but we're also going to check the bottom surface. And I'll just tip up my cutting board here, and we can see this is really dry on this side. So we definitely want to get some oil on this and get it good to go. Now, one other tip that you'll see under here, underneath my cutting board, I always have either a towel, a damp towel. You can use a damp paper towel even, or I use some of that non-slip kitchen cabinet material to keep under my board so that as I'm working on it, it doesn't slide around. All right, with that, we'll go ahead and get things started and show you how this works. All right, so I've moved my cutting board out of the way, and I took that mat that was underneath it, that cabinet mat, so that I could put an oven rack, essentially a wire rack underneath my cutting board. This is going to keep it off the surface of the counter so I'm not getting oil and things like that on the counter as I oil the board. So we're just going to take the cutting board, set it down on top, right? Make sure we're over the counter. We're going to take our food grade cutting board oil, mineral oil. We're just going to drizzle a little bit of that on top of our board, okay? And already we can start to see things, coming to life in terms of what's underneath that oil. We're just going to take our hand and rub the oil into the board. That's all there is to it. Just want to get it rubbed into the board, nice and good. Apply a little bit more as you need. A little goes a long way. You don't need tons and tons. I would say a quarter or a dime size at a time, depending on the size of your board. And this can be applied to any type of wood cutting board, whether it's bamboo, whether it is maple like this. This is a hard maple. Cherry is another common wood that gets used in cutting boards. In addition to walnut. Walnut also gets used. So we just want to get this rubbed in. We've got a pretty nice amount on the surface here. And then we're going to start to do the sides. And if you can just wipe some of the excess off the top, move it down to the sides, or if you need to put a little more on your board to do that, you can do that. And again, I'm just working this in with my bare hands. No towels, no cloths, no nothing needed at all. The one thing I forgot to mention that you should know ahead of time is before you do this, you want to make sure your cutting board is very clean and very dry. If you wash it, make sure that you dry it for at least an hour or so and ensure that it's totally dry before you start to do this, because you'll get better absorption of the mineral oil. So I'm going to go around and work this all the way into the rest of my board here. All right, now that we've got the first side done, plus all the edges and the ends, you want to make sure that you get in the ends. On the ends of your board where your end grain is, that's where you're going to see lots of absorption. That's where the fibers of the wood naturally expel and draw in moisture as the tree is living, or as it's you know, just lumber as it is here. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and flip this over, and we're going to set this back down, and we're just going to do the exact same thing to the other side. And just make sure that this side gets nice and lubricated well. All right, so we'll go ahead and get that oil rubbed in. Now we've got our bottom side done and we're all set. One of the things that you may notice is that one area of your board may be a little bit more dry than the others. For example, this side of my cutting board on the bottom side at this end tends to be taking a little bit more oil, and you'll see that because you'll see it start to look dry. And you can just take some of that excess oil, rub that over into those areas, and just rub it in. And help get a little bit more oil in those areas that tend to be a little bit more dry. All right. We've got that done. So now what we're going to do is we're just going to let it sit, and we're going to let it rest for about 10 minutes, let that oil soak in, and then we'll be back to do the last step and get this wrapped up. All right, so we've let our cutting board sit for about 10 minutes and we're ready to go ahead and wipe it down. All you're going to need is just some regular paper towels. You can take a couple at a time, whatever you prefer. I like to use about 2 of these little sheets per side. And what we're going to do is just go ahead and start wiping down the cutting board, wiping off all that excess oil that's still sitting off the surface. All our edges. And you're not going to get all the oil off by any stretch of the means, but you're going to get a good amount. And that's all that matters. We're still going to let it dry and sort of sit, you know, for the rest of the day. But once you're done with this, you can pretty much go ahead and use your cutting board right away. The benefit to doing the maintenance, again, prevents the cutting board from drying out and cracking. We'll make sure that it lasts a long time. And it also helps resist stains from water or other food items that you have on your cutting board as you're using it. All right, so we'll do that. We'll flip it over to the other side. Use another set of paper towels. And just go through and start wiping this guy down. Looking much better than what I did before. Much, much, much better. And that's exactly what we want. All right, so from here, we will go ahead and let it rest. We're gonna let it sit on that oven rack for probably another hour or so. Maybe do one kind of final wipe down, and it's good to go. But if you needed to use it right away, it's ready to use. Again, with the Food Safe mineral oil, you've got nothing to worry about. You just don't want to use anything like baby oil or a mineral oil that you'd find at the hardware store or anything. Incidentally, you can find food grade mineral oil at a hardware store or a big box store, but you just want to make sure that that's what it's for. All right. Well, thanks again for joining us. I hope you enjoyed this video on how to maintain your wood cutting board. And don't forget to like and subscribe. We'd love to have you join as we explore the entire world of food, culinary everything, and all the tools of the trade. All right, have a great day. We'll see you in the next video.